Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. With the 450 divide you in half.
What's good? What's good? We are back. Welcome back to First Cut Live. As you guys can see, we're feeling a little lonely today because I'm here with my boy, Mr. Power Forward, Mr. Duncan, Mr. Threes from the Corner, Mr. RB3, Triple Threat. What's up? Let's go.
Yo, what's going on? What's going on? Happy to be here. Feeling fresh today, man. Feeling fresh. Got a haircut. I don't know if y'all peep.
Hey.
But yeah,
Hey.
so I'm ready.
Obviously, guys, as you can see, we are missing our trio person, our third person, our star center. She's obviously away for vacation. Shout out to Sabrina, if she ever watches this back, or if she's watching right now.
Yeah.
What's up? Y'all can say what's up to her. You can follow her at Sabrina X Monica.
It might be a little difficult to for her to be watching us now because you might be on a mountaintop.
Yeah.
But,
Last we saw, she was on a mountain.
Yeah. So
Saw
she might
video
not be
evidence of
watching.
her on a mountain, literally.
Yeah.
But either way, guys, go follow her, Sabrina X Monica, on Twitter. You could follow her Patreon as well, Sabrina on Film. Go support Sabrina. Absolutely. That's what we want to promote, right, RB3?
Yes, we got to promote Sabrina's amazing Patreon, and of course, our amazing stream that we did yesterday with Call to Action, where we did like a kind of swag off for our faction swag. Yeah, that was a great time, man. Winston was a judge and had a special ghost judge in there that came in at the end, surprised everybody. So it was an amazing time. Shout out to Call to Action. Shout out to Alex and everybody, and Jake Yacovetta and everybody at that juncture. It was a great time.
It was a lot of fun, man. Obviously, we got to be passionate. We got to go at each other about how much we like each other. It was like that scene from Sorry to Bother You. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy you 2 drinks, bro. Yeah, oh, real good. How about that?
Yeah,
you smoke good.
Yeah.
That
was a good time. It was actually fun because, like there, I couldn't fight against compliments against myself. So when in the third round came, I thought I had a layup, but you came in saying a bunch of nice stuff, and I couldn't fight against that. What was I gonna say? I don't want to hear nice things. So nah, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, obviously that was a blast, and we highly recommend anyone go back and watch it. Yeah, man, there's a lot to get through today. I don't know if there's anything off the dome that you want to start with. We literally just came together right now, so obviously this is all kind of jumbled. I have a list of topics that I want to talk about, and I want to get the chat involved. Whoever's here right now, whether it's Chris Corican, Pardis is here, Saad is here, Franco Peralta is here. Pretty much anyone who's in the chat right now, we want you to be a part of the conversation as well. What do you want to start with, man? You know our list.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Want to start with the Baby Yoda in the room?
I mean, what do we want to yell about? One thing first, or what do we want to yell about another thing first? Because I got rant for days, y'all, for all of this.
Yeah, you do, stuff, so. And I'm gonna let you do it because I feel like you should be able to do it. That should be the case. You should be able to speak your mind, regardless of how anyone feels. Yeah, man. Just because I'm holding a Baby Yoda mug and I'm literally sipping that bone broth. Shout out to Baby Yoda. Right. That's a reference.
I think your mic might be a little low too. On my end.
Is it?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just hearing things wrong. But
okay,
there you go. That's better.
There. I just brought it closer to myself. That's crazy. It's a miracle. Either way, let's do it, man. The Baby Yoda in the room. Let's talk about what happened, I believe, last week on Twitter and on social media. But it's been happening for a minute. If y'all follow Gina Carano, shout out to Gina Carano.
Yeah.
Now that we said her name, it's going to be, there'll be people in our mentions for sure, and in our comments. But last week, it was, break it down for me, man. I don't even know how it started, to be honest. I was trying to avoid it, if you can tell.
Well,
I tweet that I was just avoiding it.
To be fair, I'm not exactly sure how it started either. Now what I do know is that there was what my information, at least from my perspective, what I saw is Pedro Pascal had he, him, and his pronoun names, and in his bio or whatever. And then I saw Gina Carano do the bop, boop, beep, whatever, baloney, BS. Gonna not curse today, about, you know, whatever she said. So that was my perspective. I don't know if she did the bebop thing first and then Pedro Pascal did his thing. I don't know what that thing was. That's just what I saw, and what I saw was her weaponizing her Star Wars fandom, because when she did that, she also posted a GIF or a GIF, whatever you want to call it, of R2D2.
Can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
That I know what happened before.
Okay.
It was the whole mask tweet that she put out.
Okay.
Where she said people should go to churches without masks, and then she put out the change in her Twitter bio, and then she retweeted this guy going up to the cops that was shot, and yelling at them, and she was like, you know, tweeting against that, but she retweeted a guy who's like so far right and so like out of left field. He's the same guy who wrongly accused someone from Compton, I think, of being the shooter of those two cops, and he wrongly accused this guy, put his, you know, info on social media and said that this is the killer, and basically put a hit list on the guy. That's the same guy that Gina Carano retweeted, and then she tweeted out, she changed her bio, the beep bop boop whatever, as a way to, I think what it was is, I think it was a way to make fun of the people that were coming at her. And I guess a lot of people that were coming at her had their pronouns in their bio. So I think that was her,
and
what she was doing.
So again, I didn't know about the mask thing. I knew about her
I knew about it because of Lori Kelly. So shout out to Lori Kelly.
Shout out to Lori
Kelly. She
Kelly.
called her out like 2 weeks ago, or like a week and a half ago. Lori Kelly called Gina Carano out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, so my reading of the situation is that she did the bebop boop thing. You know, people talked to her about it. You know, Pedro Pascal talked to her in private about it. Everybody on Twitter told her how wrong it was and exactly what was wrong about it. And the transgender community came out in droves and educated this woman on exactly what was the problem and why it needed to be addressed. And instead of listening to the community that, you know, a community very well that is intensely marginalized, that is absolutely one of the most targeted communities in the United States of America.
Mr. Alec Miller donated $10. What's up, guys? Just want to support some of the best people on the internet.
Thank you.
You know I got love for you, Ace. Love you too, RB3, even though your Lakers smashed my Rockets. It's all love, though.
Yeah, nah.
Both of you and Sabrina are the few.
Oh, we and Sabrina. Oh, well, I'm gonna mute it for right now. I always forget this thing is on sometimes when we do this live stream.
What was the last part? Just so we can.
Let me pull it up on my phone real quick.
Oh, my bad, bro. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, you're good. You're I'll get back to it in a second. But yeah. So when Gina Carano, so my observation of the situation was already, okay, she did something wrong. They told her about it. She's not only continuing to do the wrong thing, but she's tripling down and quadrupling down on it. Now, what that tells me is, like, it's not an issue of free speech or an issue of, you know, allegations or actions or anything. This is literally her belief. Like, there's no question of what her belief is, of what her intent is. Like, and, you know, even after, you know, the anti-Black Lives Matter stuff, the mask stuff, I didn't know that. You know, I saw the anti-Black Lives Matter stuff afterwards, but that wasn't even like the target of my concern, because what was so clearly wrong here was her response to the situation. It would have been immensely easy to just have a situation where she would have acknowledged her wrongdoing, acknowledged the problem, and corrected it. That's all it would have took. But because she truly doesn't believe that, because she truly is a transphobic human being, because she truly does not value the lives of trans people and trans rights in the same way as everybody else, including her white privileged self, she decides that, hey, I'm just going to tweet whatever I want to tweet and F everybody else, right? So at the end of the day, what infuriates me, because you could be mad at somebody's thoughts, like all you want. You can be mad at what a person believes, what kind of hate they preach, or what kind of hate they perpetrate. What infuriates me about it is, okay, you can do all that stuff, but you're literally besmirking the great Star Wars name, a name that I frankly have cared about for a lot of my life. I know you've cared about a lot of your life. What a lot of people have deep personal connections to ignite a hate-filled campaign using something that was created on something so anti-hate, on something that's so universal and appealing and takes a stance against evil and bad and hatred and actually advocates for unity and listening. That's what I've always felt Star Wars represented. I think that's why it's special for a lot of people. But when you take that and when you appropriate it for some far right, right leaning, super transphobic ideologies and belief, where you're literally devaluing other human beings' thoughts, actions, invalidating their experiences for what? For a joke? It makes literally no sense to me. And so that's why for me, I get frustrated from when I see reactions from people like, Lucasfilm and Disney, where there's kind of like this inaction about the situation, right? Where we, not only 2 weeks ago, we had John Boyega, the star of The Force Awakens, and, put to this supporting seat in the subsequent 2 films, how he talks about how his experience in Star Wars wasn't necessarily up to snuff. Meanwhile, Disney has this reputation of just, hey, if somebody does anything remotely controversial and it looks bad on our brand, we fire him immediately, right? Kevin Hart, he says something stupid, we fire him, which I think is the right thing. James Gunn, he says something messed up, they fired him. Boom. Roseanne Barr, she says something crazy, boom, they fired her, just like that. What is Gina Carano saying and doing that is not on the same level as what those individuals are doing? In fact, I think it's even worse, because when we talk about the Kevin Hart and James Gunn situation, those were tweets that happened years ago. People literally had to dig those up. It's not about what they believed then in that moment. It was about what they believed back when they tweeted those original things, right? This is a situation where we actively know what side of the fence Gina Carano's on. And the side of the fence that she's on is hatred, bigotry, and anti-trans rights. And that's and not listening to trans people. And frankly, the fact that she blocked me on Twitter, hey, hooray, I'm super happy. I honestly wish she would have blocked me sooner, because what are you going to do? And you can put on this tough guy or tough girl persona all you want, but at the end of the day, like, you're just as much of a snowflake as anybody else, and who you want to call the far left liberals who are attacking you, bullying you. For one, I hate seeing this stupid narrative from people who are online, like, people were bullying Gina Carano. People were bullying Gina Carano. She was literally bullying an entire community. What are you talking about? If an entire community is telling you, hey, we don't appreciate what something's being said, and you're actively going against that, yes, that's bullying. And yes, you deserve to get bullied back. What's the issue there? So people want to live in this world where there's like absolutely no accountability, where like literally anybody could say like wherever they want, whenever they want. They could preach hate, they could preach inequality, they could preach whatever they want to say, and just preach it off and pass it off as like free speech or free whatever. But it's just it's all horse doo-doo. Like, it's all just ridiculous, because they get just as easily as triggered when you try and correct them on why they're wrong for when they are actually actively being wrong. So it's pathetic. It's disgusting. It's insane. I hope Gina Carano, like, I don't know. I mean, I hope somebody at Lucasfilm is watching this. Probably not. And that's what really frustrates me too about the situation. It's not just her behavior. It's, again, where's the response? Where's we see Warner Brothers with Ezra Miller not handling their situation with that. I mean, on top of that, Ray Fisher got his whole thing. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll get to that in a minute. So when are we gonna look at, okay, if these individuals, if these people are not gonna learn from their wrongdoing, and you could say difference of political belief, whatever. Trans rights are human rights. Trans ideologies are human ideologies. Like, everybody deserves to be treated like a human. And what Gina Carano was doing was not doing that. So when people talk about, you want somebody fired off of a difference of opinion? No, I want somebody fired for being hateful, for preaching dumb, stupid, hateful content that is literally life-threatening for a lot of people. I mean, we saw that clip literally a couple of weeks ago where there's a bunch of trans women in Hollywood at night who got like brutalized or beat up by a bunch of random dudes on the streets. You know, R.I.P. Nina Pop, another Black Lives Matter victim who got killed by the cops early in this in this whole thing that didn't get talked about because she was trans. There's example after example where our society actively ignores trans people, trans rights, trans and just, you know, even to a further extent of LGBTQ community in general. So this conversation is non-debatable. It shouldn't even have to be a political thing. It's not a political thing. People are allowed to have whatever political beliefs they want to have. What people aren't allowed to have is a disregard and a disrespect for other people's personalities, sexualities, you know, beliefs, or whatever else they represent, or race, or gender, or whatever. People shouldn't be judged on that, period. People shouldn't have to feel ashamed of that, period. So the fact that like a Disney-backed property stars this woman and there's inaction about it, of course that's going to reflect on Disney. And that just leads me to more questions. When are we going to hear something from Disney? When are we going to hear? I mean, I even see like marketing people from Disney still liking like her tweets whenever she tweets about Mandalorian. It's just like what are we seeing? What is the change? Who is going to hold anybody? Is anybody going to hold anybody accountable? Is this a society that we've kind of been to and ended up in like right now? If you work, it's so crazy to me because people don't get it. If you work at Kaiser Permanente and you tweet out the N-word, you're getting fired. Like there's no question, there's no debate. Like you're getting fired. That's just what's going to happen. But people want to live in a society where that doesn't happen. Stupid. So I don't know. I don't know if that was a coherent, you know, whatever. I'm just kind of babbling on about whatever. But I really genuinely am concerned about how we as people are going to start making changes to society and adapt to a point where we can be able to talk about these things, and to a point where we can be able to hold people who are hateful and who are shameful on, you know, who enact shame and judgment on other communities, how we're going to hold those people accountable and how we're going to exile that out of our community. How we're going to do that. That's the question I have. So
it really is a lot. There's so much there, right? Because it's the idea of accountability, and it's the concept behind what you said, right? It's the idea of if I worked anywhere else, I would get fired. What's different here? The only thing that's different is that this person is an actor. They have a bigger platform. Therefore, their message gets promoted even more and encourages even more hate. That's what's different. That if I tweeted that from Kaiser Permanente, maybe I don't even have that many followers, but Gina Carano does. And she has a lot of avid followers that will follow her every move, which makes her comments even more dangerous. Here's my breakdown, man, and bear with me here. And if you can correct me, you could say I'm wrong any time you want, because I obviously want to give everyone that kind of platform when it comes to this. And obviously this is your YouTube channel too. I think what happened is kind of what I said, is the idea that the people, when she started doing anti-mask stuff, and she started saying, hey, this is stupid, don't wear a mask, and just go out and do whatever you want, is kind of what she tweeted out. The people who came and said, hey, that's not cool, hey, that's not right, like Lori Kelly, for example, who said that, saw that the people in their Twitter bios, a lot of them had the pronouns. And I think she was like, oh, F these people, I'm going to do the beep bop boop and make fun of these people. And then someone came in and corrected her and said, hey, actually, this is what the pronouns mean. It's actually a trans thing. And it's very, you know, important thing. So we would appreciate if you would take this from your title of your username. And she didn't. And she said, I didn't know. I talked to Pedro. He explained to me what it was. And obviously I don't condone bullying. And yet she kept it in her name for quite a few days after that tweet, when she was like, oh, I didn't know. And yet she still kept it. So my thing is like, it's switched the whole thing. If I was getting tweeted at saying, hey, maybe you should wear a mask, and I'd look through people's profile pictures and they're all Asian, and I put this thing making fun of Asians because everyone coming at me would happen to be Asian, and I do this, I don't know, racist tweet about Asians or racist thing in my bio about Asians, you can bet your butt that a lot of people are going to be like, hey, just because a lot of Asians went after you doesn't mean you can make fun of Asians in your Twitter bio. And I think that's what she did. And that's what's missing, is that I don't think she necessarily wanted to go after them, but she just did. And she maybe didn't know at first, but then when she was told this is what she was doing, and then she kind of doubled down on it, like you said, and tripled down on it by leaving it up for like 5 days or more, that beep bop boop thing, that really made it seem like you don't matter is basically what that meant. That is kind of what pushed people over the edge to say, hey, this isn't okay. I don't see this as a positive thing whatsoever. Here's my question to you, RB3. Since this isn't going away, because it isn't, right? I'm considering that she's, for all we know, she's still there. For all we know, man, press is for The Mandalorian Season 2 is going to happen in the next coming month and a half, week and a half. We're going to start to see her on YouTube shows and on different press events. How is Disney going to cover that, right? I mean, she has to do press for The Mandalorian Season 2. Virtual press is probably going to be the way to go. So are we going to see IGN? Are we going to see other Variety, other people have her on a podcast and start promoting The Mandalorian? Because I don't know how that's going to fly. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because to me, that's the biggest issue, is that the way they kind of ignored it is only going to make it worse.
Well, I 100% guarantee you that if she goes on any podcast, any network, anything like that, her press people are not going to let her talk about it. Her publicist people are not going to let her talk about it. I frankly think if you are giving Gina Carano your platform, you're part of the problem. Period. Point break, period. That's my belief. And, people can find whatever ways to justify it. Oh, we can have a conversation about it. We can have a conversation. You can't have a conversation with somebody whose mind you're not going to change. What's the conversation going to be about? You're going to have a conversation where they're going to justify to you why what they said and what they did was right. And then you're going to have a bunch of people who are going to watch that and feel like, oh, what she did was right. Okay, I guess I can go out there and be transphobic too, and that's going to be okay too. So I will say this right now. I publicly and honestly, openly denounce any organization or anything that gives Gina Carano any kind of press during this coverage. Period. I'm not gonna. If whatever, whatever. I don't care who does it. Is not giving a platform to a person who is outrightly disrespecting other human beings for the sole reason of privilege, for the sole purpose of having no other reason but just for the fact that she can, is not something I'm going to stand behind. So I'm just going to say that. And I think, it'll be a shame if Disney allows her to even be a part of the rollout, honestly. Because listen, I'm not going to watch Mandalorian Season 2. And a lot of people are, and this is also frustrating about this situation, man. Because people who are outside of this don't get it. People who are not black, people who are not a part of the LGBTQ community, which, I'm not, but a lot of people are. And people, if you're part of any marginalized group, you get it. You understand. Like, these studios, these systems, they're not out for us. They've never been out for us. They're only having this whole like movement towards diversity and this push towards diversity because it's the standard thing to do, because it's profitable, because they see it makes money. But they are more than happy to tokenize whatever they want to do. They're more than happy to trick people into the theaters, trick black people into the theaters, and make you think John Boyega is going to be a stormtrooper who turns into a Force user, who becomes a star of the Star Wars movie. And they're just going to put that in the marketing campaign, and you're going to walk into the movie, and you're going to be disappointed. And the main star is going to hate it, and he's going to be afraid to go to a Black Lives Matter protest because he's afraid he's going to get a phone call. Meanwhile, the WWE, MMA, whatever lady can say whatever transphobic thing she wants and not have to sweat for a second, not lose an ounce of sleep. So if the corporation's not going to take care of it, and this is not just a Disney specific thing. We're going to talk about Warner Brothers in a second. We're going to talk about a lot of studios, frankly, have this issue too. I think the only thing we can if you're not going to listen to us if the actors are not going to listen to the community, fine. If the studios are not going to listen to the community, fine. It's just our time is the community to stop listening to them. So that's why, for me, I'm not going to touch Mandalorian anything that has anything to do with Gina Carano. I'm not going to touch any interviews, any kind of press, or I'm not going to touch any kind of thing they have on. I'm not even going to watch. I'm not going to watch the series unless somebody tells me, hey, in episode 2, she's gone. She's not coming back. All right, dope. I'm watching from that point going forward. But no, it's not something I can get or stand behind or endorse, because frankly, it's not just entertainment at this point. It's not just entertainment. You're setting a standard and a precedent and a message for people going forward for generations way beyond ours. So you have to do the right thing now in order for the right thing to happen in the future. And a lot of these people, places, organizations are actively choosing not to do the right thing. So,
well, it's interesting, man, because we're having this conversation, just us two right now. Here's my thing, man. Yesterday, I was watching the PlayStation reveal. And one of the biggest things at the PlayStation reveal was the Harry Potter RPG, right? It looked incredible. And a lot of people that were on after show, shout out to GameSpot. I watch GameSpot, their YouTube channel. Tamor, Michael, and Lucy were talking about the idea of playing a video game that has to do with Harry Potter now that J.K. Rowling has been very active. I mean, if you want to talk about transphobic, J.K. Rowling is the biggest example, right? She wrote a book about transphobia, literally. And the way Tamor said it, where he said, look at what Daniel Radcliffe said. And this is my point of view, right? You don't have to share it, man. But my thing is, like, I don't think J.K. Rowling has the power to take away my love and my inspiration from Harry Potter. If I did grow up with the books and if I did grow up with the series, everything I learned from Harry Potter, everything I've learned from Hermione and other characters that I really enjoyed isn't diminished in any way just because the creator wants to do this kind of stuff. That's what Daniel Radcliffe said, and that's what he said. Don't let her take away your passion and your love for this world that you imagine yourself in, which I guess is the point of the game too.
Of course.
But that's my thing too when it comes to Star Wars. And obviously this is Star Wars, right? It's my biggest love, and I am gonna watch Mandalorian season 2. But here's my thing. Yes, you're right. There is a lot of pandering when it comes to, again, shout out to Lindsay Ellis with Woke Disney, when it comes to casting people of color in these kind of movies. And again, you can give a lot of points to what John Boyega said last week or 2 weeks ago in that article, talking about his perspective and certain things. And obviously, there is so much corruption going on in certain big studio companies when it comes to the kind of racism that we see. We saw that with the lotion, perfume, I forget what it was, the brand that John Boyega was promoting.
Oh yeah, Joe Malone. Yeah, Joe Malone. That got stolen and that got
completely took him out of it and completely based off race, which essentially is what it showed, and still stole his idea at the same time. I guess what I'm trying to say is the same thing Daniel Radcliffe said about Harry Potter is the same thing I'll say about Star Wars. There was still, man, and I'm telling you, a lot of kids who saw Finn and were like, Finn is my boy. I'm Finn. I get to be this general that leads this, giant ship to attack the First Order. I get to break off away from the First Order, and I get to be someone that's not a stormtrooper. I get to do my own thing. And a lot of kids were inspired by that. A lot of people took that to heart. And I feel like that's a very powerful thing. It was a powerful thing to cast John Boyega as one of the main characters in this sequel trilogy. I really feel that way, and I will always feel that way, regardless of even how he feels. And I get it. That's how he feels, and I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just saying I still think it's a powerful message that they did cast John Boyega as one of the leads to Star Wars. Here's my thing about what you just said about what's going on in this country right now. Man, I can't lie, bro. Like, I had a week because that article kind of shook me. The article about the hysterectomies that were happening in these mass, basically concentration camps is what we have in the U.S. And my thing is, last year there was a guy who went out of his way to go to El Paso to shoot Latinos and to shoot Mexicans. He literally said, I'm just here to kill brown people. I'm here to kill Mexicans because my president said they're dangerous, so I have to kill them. My community, my group, my people are targeted, literally targeted with guns and with weapons and with intent to kill and destroy. And frankly, this is like ethnic cleansing type shit that's going on right now when it comes to these type of concentration camps that are taking uteruses out of women, out of all the women. Like this is some, come on, bro. This is some ethnic cleansing type shit where we haven't seen in like 70, 80 years. Like this is some shit we haven't seen in years. And my thing is, I will always go back to that article that came out a year and a half ago. 3% of Hollywood films, 3% feature a Latino lead. A Latino lead in any way. Not even like the lead. I'm talking a lead. 3%. When it's 25% of the box office is made up by Latinos. And Star Wars has gone out of their way, whether it's Poe, whether it's Benicio del Toro, whether it's Diego Luna, and now one of the most vocal, passionate actors that I know, and someone I've been following for quite a while. He meant so much to me when I saw Game of Thrones Season 4. I've gone on record and I've gone on Casterly Talk, shout out to Casterly Talk, to talk about what Oberyn Martell means to me. And what Oberyn Martell meant to me was the first, and I'm serious, bro, the first Latin character that wasn't trying to kill you or rape you or shoot you or sell you drugs. I've mentioned Breaking Bad before, but Breaking Bad was the biggest show of all time during that time when Season 4 of Game of Thrones was coming out. It was coming out around the same time. And right at the peak of Breaking Bad, here is this Latino character who's a prince, who's smart, who's the best fighter in the kingdom, and who didn't bow down to the dragons. Like, bro, he's the biggest badass on the planet. And he happens to be Latino, and he has a Latin accent. Like, Pedro Pascal means a lot to me. And here he is coming off that, going to Narcos, which is a show that I saw mainly because of him. And now he's one of the leads of the show. I'm going to watch this show. You see what I'm saying? Like, it means that much to me. My group is a marginalized group. We don't get a lot of leading roles. And yes, it's a voiceover role. And yes, he's in a mask. But you know what? It means a lot to me. And I'm going to watch this kind of Star Wars show that represents a part of my community that is frankly ignored in Hollywood. Again, 3% of leading roles, of any leading role in the last 15 years in Hollywood is a Latino lead. That to me shows an active racist ideology in Hollywood when it comes to Latin actors and Latin characters. And Star Wars has gone out of their way to promote, even if it's a little bit, any kind of Latino. And the biggest badass on the planet is a Latino in The Mandalorian. You see what I'm saying, man? Like, for me, I'm there. I'm not gonna let one person weigh down this entire thing. Just like Daniel Radcliffe said about J.K. Rowling, I'm gonna watch those Harry Potter movies and enjoy this shit out of them because I love Harry Potter. Even though I suck at it at trivia, but I'm still gonna watch the shit out of those movies. I'm gonna show it to the rest of my family. I'm gonna say, hey, look at this incredible story, because I love that story, and I don't think it's fair that someone should take it away. Someone like a J.K. Rowling or someone like a Gina Carano. That's kind of my spiel.
It's definitely not fair. But the only way that you're ever gonna, for me, I feel like we're ever gonna get any kind of response from any kind of studio or any kind of corporation is to hit them monetarily, hit them, whatever. So, I mean, I absolutely understand you in the fact that, like, yeah, like there's a disproportionate lack of representation for Latino and Latinx people in the movie industry. Like, absolutely 100% agree. And I 100% empathize with that. I mean, for me, it's just, it might just be one person, but that one person and the lack, it's not the one person, it's the lack of a response that really hurts me the most. And a lack of a response is, if I'm not feeling comfortable with the way they responded, I'm going to respond with not watching. I'm going to respond with, hey, listen, and frankly, like, $6.99 for Disney, I could put that $6.99 to getting a salad every month or something like that. Like, that's not a lot of money, and I can guarantee you I would not lose an ounce of sleep losing Disney Plus. Like, there's nothing on there that's that good that would be worth me thinking twice about canceling it. Like, there's nothing that good. I promise you. And they have to. I hope at some point Disney checks their privilege, because at some point people are going to catch on, and they might let this little transphobic thing slide. But watch, one of their actors might go on, let the N-word slide out. More people will cancel. Might say something anti-Semitic. Even more people might cancel. You see what I'm saying? They're going to keep letting these slippery slopes happen. But then if they don't let it happen, it just, again, highlights the fact that they don't care about trans people. And that's my big fight, too. So I'm never going to stand with watching Mandalorian until, like, we hear something. Even I would just love to, it ain't got to be Disney. It could be Jon Favreau. It could be Kathleen Kennedy. At least saying something. Hey, we don't like this. Hey, we talked to her. And really, honestly, anything short of we fired her is not really acceptable. But the fact that there's like a dead silence in the same way that there has been a dead silence about Ezra Miller, in the same way there's been a dead silence about what's happening with Ray Fisher, outside of what Ray Fisher's been telling us. And salute to my brother Ray Fisher, because he goes out there and he's making a fight all himself. Like, if you notice what Ray Fisher is doing, he literally has no cards to play other than just as soon as he gets some information, he runs and tells the public about it, because they're behind the scenes, they're gaslighting him in the same way that a lot of these big companies will gaslight you into thinking what you're saying is invalid or wrong. So I 100% understand where he's coming from on that level. So
I agree, man, and I really do. It's one of those things where I think both can be the case, man. And maybe this is just me. Maybe you disagree. But I do think both can be the case, where I disagree with everything that she's saying. I agree with what you're saying, and yet I still feel like there is a lot of people behind a show like The Mandalorian, like a Pedro Pascal, who has a leading role, who's someone that we've seen be the complete opposite of someone like a Gina Carano, someone who uses his platform to go out of his way to speak about issues, about righteous issues, and about having minority groups be in the conversation more, and about certain human rights violations that are currently going on in America. Like, this is the kind of guy we're dealing with, which is why I want to support that kind of show when it comes to this kind of people that are the kind of people that do want to speak up in a positive manner. And I don't want to give the credence to someone like a Jim Carano to take away that I don't know, that love of Star Wars that I have from me. My thing is, like, I'm not going to let her take away what I have. And I'm not going to let her influence my thoughts on something that, to me, I'm willing to push that aside, I guess is what I'm saying.
But I mean, yeah, it just depends on what you're willing to push aside. But it's funny because there's that, I was talking about Kendrick Lamar, and we played that little intro earlier in the episode. There's a Kendrick Lamar leak that came out of unreleased music, which I highly doubt will get released now. That is, for one, it's been leaked, and for two, the subject matter of one of the songs, Prayer, is literally him speaking from the perspective. It starts, the first verse is him speaking from the perspective of Michael Jackson, essentially. And then it's all about how, the entire song is about how, even though whatever Mike did is effed up, he ultimately, like, his influence on me, like, I wouldn't be who I am, like, without him. So, like, that's definitely a valid and interesting kind of dichotomy that a lot of us, in art and entertainment got to deal with, especially how a lot of artists in the past have been. I do think, though, that there is an avenue and there is a possibility for us to have unproblematic and celebrate unproblematic art. I think there's a reality where that can happen if we hold the problematic people accountable and get them out and swap them out with somebody just equally as talented. Because when I think about like a Gina Carano getting like that part in Star Wars and seeing her do whatever she's doing, like up there on the screen or TV or whatever, like that, if that part could have easily gone to a woman of color too. That part could go to anybody. Like her part is so inconsequential to the entire story. Who she is, like, for one, she's not even that good of an actress. Like that's what also, like, is kind of like mind-boggling to me too. It's like she's not even that good. She literally had to have her lines dubbed in Haywire. Like, she's not good. This may be the first thing that she's been mildly mediocre at. But then, like, so, like, cast somebody who is a person of color, who's non-problematic, who has no history of doing anything wrong or being transphobic, and give them that part and that opportunity, I guarantee you they'll knock it at the park 10 times harder than she would have it. So it's not like her celebrity's keeping her around. It's not like she's that big of a star. Not like she has this kind of impactful legacy on Hollywood. It doesn't matter. Like, and again, like, I understand you, Andres. Like, it's something that you're willing to put aside, and a lot of people put aside, and I totally understand it, because it is a lot more than one person. It is definitely a lot more than one person, and the whole movie making thing is more than one person. Even we talk about the PS5 and that Horror Grows video game. I'm almost sure J.K. Rowling had almost nothing to do with that video game. So, like, do you have to feel guilty for playing that video game? No. Do I feel guilty when I play that video game? I'm not touching it. Like, you know what I mean? It's just something that I personally feel that passionate about, to where, yeah, it's not going to be something I'm going to touch, I'm going to express, because if I'm not going to fight, if I'm going to fight as hard as I fight for Black lives and as hard as I fight for my people and what I identify with, I got to go equally as hard for just about anybody and everybody else. So I like so if the exact same situation happened, but Gina Carano changed her bios instead of Bebop Boop to some 1920s jazz thing or whatever, like I'd be equally as upset. And I think more people would probably be on the camp of like, cancel this, cancel that. But I think because it's the fact that it's like a trans thing is kind of getting shoved under the table a little bit, and people are just like kind of not actively being as upset about it. So I'm going to keep being upset about it. I'm going to keep fighting the fight about it. I'm going to keep speaking out about it, and I'm going to keep not watching Mandalorian until I do something about it. So
that's my thing, man. My thing is, I agree 100% with you. I'm the same way in other aspects. I mean, you know me, man.
Yeah.
I am the kind of guy who will not buy certain things, who will not do certain things, simply to just go against the grain, because I don't want to support. I won't click on videos that have thumbnails that I clearly do not agree with, even though they bait me as much as they can. I don't reply to people who want me to reply to them when it comes to stuff they want to say to me. Like, I am the kind of guy who will not support something that I don't agree with if I feel like they're doing something that is completely unethical. I am that kind of guy, so I totally get it, man. I protest things all the time. In fact, I'm protesting things daily.
Yeah.
In order to that's my thing. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to have. I don't feel the need that everyone has to do it because I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm doing it doesn't necessarily mean everyone's gonna protest the same way as I do.
Yeah. See, that's my thing. I don't watch the NFL, but I have no beef with people who watch the NFL. I'm not gonna watch.
A lot of people watch the NFL.
A lot of people watch the NFL. I don't watch the Mandalorian, but hey, you want to watch Mandalorian? Anybody wants to watch Mandalorian? Cool, fine, have fun. That's your thing. That's your influence. That's your childhood. For me personally, it's a little too much to overcome, but I totally understand that perspective. But I will say this too. When it comes to having that same conversation about allegations and what has been proven, it's an entirely different situation, right? Like, when we talk about things that people have been, like an R. Kelly, or people who actually have documented histories of things, like, there shouldn't be a question of get them the F out of here, right? Like, there shouldn't be any kind of debate or any kind of pause or anything about that. It's just curious to me that it can lean so far when it comes to the actions, but the thoughts aren't necessarily as punished either. So I don't know what place we're gonna have for that in society. Are we gonna have social media companies have watch of that? I mean, that's something I don't personally agree with, but I don't think we could continue living in a society where an entire group of like alt-right trolls could get behind a Gina Carano transphobia thing, and she could feel like she's okay and justify everything she's doing because of it. Like, I don't think that can continue to permeate and happen in a healthy society. Or if it does continue to permeate and happen, like, the corporations got to address it in a better way. So,
Well, the problem is it's getting worse, though, man. I mean, do you
Yeah.
really see that changing in a positive way? I see it changing in a negative way, if anything.
Yeah.
I see them giving in more to the trolls and giving in more to the far right to seem like they're not, like, oh, all of Hollywood is super leftist, so we have to appease to the far right in order to seem like we're neutral. You
Yeah.
don't see that?
Yeah, I mean that's just some weak stuff though, man. And people gotta stop being weak. People gotta stop. That's why we need strong leaders. That's why we need strong leaders, and more importantly, that's why we need people at the top who actually believe in doing the right thing. Like for a lot of these people at the top, like they have no morals, they have no ethics. They don't care if a black person slaved over 30 hours to create something that they whatever, or they whatever. They don't care. They don't care if a little underpaid Chinese kid is who lost their foot making this iPhone, whatever. Like they don't give a fart about it because they have no morals, they have no ethics, and we gotta get that out of here. We gotta change that. We gotta go towards a society that that's that is more humanistic, that believes in doing the right thing for anybody and everything. And we currently don't live in that. And we are in America. We are the corporate nation. Like we are the capitalist world. Like the only way for change to happen in this country is through the corporations to do it. And it can't be through the symbolic change. It can't be through the changing the Aunt Jemimas and the Uncle Bens and all this. It got to be firing the people who you need to fire and hiring the people you need to hire and paying the people who you're hiring the things they need to be paid. Because, for all of this, for whatever paycheck that they're blowing up Gina Carano's, line for doing this Mandalorian show, they could take that, divvy it up amongst everybody who works at Disneyland and give them just a little bit of an extra bonus. I'd applaud that. Like I'd run to Disney Plus. I even paid a little $30 for Mulan. Like I will actively support anything that's the right thing. But they actively choose not to do the right thing in the interest of appealing to the far right and to the interest of making money. And it's sick and it's disgusting and it's something I just can't get behind. So.
Of course, and I feel like everything is through money, right? Everything is through finance. I feel like the story that came out, and we'll get to it in a little bit, about the shooting of Mulan and the location in which they shot happened to be that concentration camp filled with Muslims, or happened to be one of the locations that was at. Mm-hmm. I think that's one example of people looking into exactly what is going on with certain actions. I just feel like I've had these conversations with people when it comes to the NBA RB3, and I don't know what you think, but a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of these far right people have come back at me being like, we don't want this Black Lives Matter things in the NBA. Get it out of here. They don't care about lives. Look at all the money they're taking from China, and China's evil. Yeah. To which I respond, yes, China does have a lot of human rights issues, and China is ignoring a lot of issues in their own country. They do have the society that's controlled and manipulated and being told what to do, and yet we still buy Chinese products every time, and pretty much everything that we own is somehow involved with China. In order to change that, we need to break away from that. I was listening to the Big Picture podcast talking about Mulan and how there's this capitalistic issue that happened in China, frankly, during the Clinton administration, where we chose to kind of go with the flow when it comes to the Chinese capitalistic environment and the connection that we have with China. And now what it's led to a lot of turning a blind eye to a lot of human rights issues that goes on with China because they're giving us money. So the only way to change that is to put our foot down and be like, we won't buy this if you do this. Which is a very important thing to do, and I think that's the only way to change it. How far deep are we in order to change it? I don't know. This is all very complex capitalistic system structure that's been going on in this nation and these two nations for years, right? I mean, half the time the president is saying, I hate China, get China out of here. And then half the time he's sending emails to the president of China being like, hey man, you got the hookups? Like, yeah. Which one is it, man? Like, This is the kind of issues that we're running into now. And I feel like it's bleeding into every single industry now with Mulan and with other issues that's going on. Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, you're right, RB3. Protesting is the best way to do this. Putting your foot down and saying, I will not buy this product. I think us opening our eyes to more of that is very important. I just feel like when it comes to something like a series, especially a series that features a lead that's the complete opposite of what you're talking about, a lead who wants to promote the kind of stuff that is positive and that has a lot of change, and a show creator and a showrunner that promotes the more positive aspects of Star Wars that we've seen in a while, right? I mean, these are two very positive guys when it comes to Filoni and Favreau. These are two guys that really want to emphasize this kind of positivity of the Star Wars fandom, which is why they chose to go with Pedro Pascal as the lead, and which is why they wanted to have these kind of roles. I think that in itself is exciting and is different and it's new, and it invites a lot of conversation when it comes to the Star Wars universe. And I just feel like I am able, and maybe I'm wrong in doing this, RB3, maybe I'm wrong in separating the art from the author or the, who created it and what it is kind of thing, but I am able to put it aside and to say, I'm going to watch Deathly Hallows tomorrow. Like, I've loved Deathly Hallows, one of my favorite movies. And I'm going to watch it with a big ass smile on my face because I'm able to separate who that is. Maybe I'm wrong in doing that, but I feel like there should be a way to do it if it is possible. Yeah. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. No one should require you to feel the same way I do. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I definitely think people should be allowed to feel whatever way they want to feel. It's funny because all of these, trigger snowflakes, like on Twitter, all like, oh, you're bullying Gina Carano, da 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 da. Bro, y'all literally mad at the fact that, like, people are trying to correct her about things. Meanwhile, you're quite literally bullying somebody for taking a stand, too. So, like, a lot of these people are just as immoronic as, as their cult leader, whether it's Gina or whether it's Trump or whether it's whoever it is, preaches to them. But at the end of the day, listen, I think the whole artist versus art conversation is a very difficult, nuanced conversation. We've had that conversation a lot on this, at least on the meaning of. And I personally, I like to attribute problematic arts and artists to the things like to other things. We've talked about how I think Chinatown's. I don't necessarily like to think of it as a Roman Polanski movie. I like to think of it as a Jack Nicholson, Faye Dunaway, noir movie. I don't like to think of it as a Polanski movie because if you think of it like that, it's gonna suck. But if you don't, there's also that conversation. Like I said, that Kendrick Lamar song "Prayer" deals with that too, about how much somebody's influenced. I think that's an interesting conversation because I think a lot of people's influences and a lot of people creatively have been touched by somebody who's problematic at one point or another, intentionally or unintentionally. And it's up to the individual consumer of how much they're going to gravitate to that or not gravitate to that, and how much they're going to put forth into, how much energy they're going to put forth into actively ignoring like a musician's catalog or a filmmaker's catalog, or if they're going to invest in, continuing to seek it out. There's definitely a scale. I think definitely people have like their own individual level of tolerance for what they're able to tolerate and what they're not able to tolerate. There's some people who can literally listen to a Chris Brown song like tomorrow and lose no sleep over it. And there's some people who can't even eat a hamburger because it's too brutal to the cows. Like, everybody has a scale. Everybody has a bar. Sure. We should live in a society where everybody should be able to live within their bar and act within their bar, be free to do whatever they tolerate and believe. I think that is definitely what we need to do. We need to promote, people being free to believe whatever they want to believe. We also need to promote corporations holding Pacific parties accountable when there's wrongdoing. And I think that needs to be normalized. And it's normalized, I think, in a lot of industries, but it's not normalized in entertainment for some reason. And there's kind of like this weird power structure that continues to happen. You talk about, Ray Fisher in that sense too, because that's essentially what happened to him. He came into a system having no power, having no kind of influence. He literally was just coming right off of Broadway to play Cyborg, and ends up, being screwed over by both the director, the producer, and everybody involved. And it's absolutely sickening. By the way, hold up, y'all. I'm going to turn on the robot real quick. We do have quite a few Streamlabs.
Let's get to it.
Let me see here. One second. Here we have a Streamlab here from Larry Lease. Before we move on to the next topic.
Larry Lease donated $20. Currently at work, can't watch live. Shout out to you all. Sabrina, you are a rock star.
Thank you, Larry Lease. And then Sinister Alec Miller sent in that one before that we missed.
Larry Lease donated $20. Currently at work, can't watch
that was the same one. Sorry.
live. Shout out to you all. Sabrina, you are a rock star.
Hey, Larry got your money's worth. Hey, people, if you want to get your donation read out loud, it's the $10 donation tier, both on Streamlabs and Super Chat. The link is in the description. Firstcut.live. Again, firstcut.live. Check it out and donate to us, because we really appreciate the support that y'all all give to us. Now, Sinister Alec Miller had that one before about the Lakers smashing the Rockets. Thank you, Sinister Alec Miller. And then it got cut off a little bit at the end, but he said, it's all love, though. Both you and Sabrina are the future of the movie industry. Thank you, Sinister Alec Miller. Big Mo donated. Big Mo! 1 second here. It should be replaying. 1 second. That should be it. I got it.
Big Mo donated $20. I was mad with her original comments, but when she started mocking the trans community is what took me over the edge and pissed me TF off.
Yeah, no, literally. And then we have Cinema Gorilla put in a few Streamlabs, which kind of transitions into the topic of Rayfish and all that. But Cinema Gorilla, y'all know I was an intern at WB for Batman v Superman / Justice League producers, and I can truly say Johns / Whedon are one of the worst people on that lot, and a lot of people are powerless, especially because the people who call the shots are rich stockholders and NYC who love them. Cinema Gorilla continued, when I would speak out against the injustice I saw at WB, I would get told it's the stockholders, the rich 1% of people who live in LA and know nothing about movies, and yes, racist / elitist AF, and are truly jealous of successful people of color. Cinema Gorilla continued, quick plug. I just got an Instagram account where I'm posting pics / stories of my experience as an unpaid brown immigrant, blessed to work for the Snyderverse, and I am welcoming any questions and whatnot at Cinema Gorilla. P.S. RB3, you met my cousin Max once at USC and invited him to a Schmodown match once, and he didn't stop talking about how cool it was. When things are normal again, I remind him to hit you up. He was too starstruck with y'all, and Ace Glacias for always representing. Hey, yo, I remember taking Max to that Schmodown match. Yeah, I know they are cousins, man. That's dope.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Yeah, it's one of those things, man, that I think he nailed it, right? Where, remember, I don't know if you saw the video interview too with John Boyega, with that homie. I think it's from GQ Britain, where he talked about how everyone talks about how Hollywood is like this super left, and he's like, not the people with power.
Yeah.
The people with power are like the Trump supporters, are like super right, and they're like super racist, and they're super old and they're super white, and like that's the kind of power structure that I saw working for my small production company. I can only imagine amplified in these major studios. It's probably way worse.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he brought that up, because it leads into our Ray Fisher discussion. Unless you have another one.
No, that's all the Streamlabs. I think we just had a super chat that came in though. Fabricio Rodas says accountability over entertainment. There you go. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, let's talk about it. Jason Momoa came out, tweeted in defense. Tweeted, Instad, I guess.
Yeah, Instad.
Instagrammed in defense of Ray Fisher and his comments and how he's 100% behind him and it's 100% true how they were treated, which goes to show you that a lot of people who are trying to discredit and discount Ray Fisher are even looking more like clowns every day. And it's one of those things where I'm curious where this is going to go, because Warner Brothers is one of the biggest studios ever. Still one of the biggest studios ever. And they're currently trying to mitigate. They're trying to put out quite a few fires, man, because I really want to get to the box office. But the box office ain't looking that clean, Warner Brothers, right now when it comes to Tenet. And on top of that, they're trying to find a way to put out this fire, if the whole Ray Fisher thing. What do you think, man, as far as any updates and as far as Jason Momoa coming out in support?
Well, the fact that Jason Momoa came out is huge. I think I remember when the story initially came out, and there was this immediate invalidation. And I think I literally came on here and said, like, I think I literally came on here that exact same day that it came out, because I think it came out on Wednesday, and we were doing it on Wednesday, where Frosty the Snow, where like Jason Momoa gets cast as Frosty the Snowman, and they totally, and I said it on here or either on SCN, I can't remember exactly where. Yeah, that's a total cover. It wasn't here, okay, but maybe it wasn't here. But I said that's a total cover up. It's totally a lie, like, or it might not be a lie, but they're totally putting that out today to mitigate exactly what Ray Fisher is doing. And then we look at like more reports are coming out, like the report that the day that Ray Fisher spoke out is the day they offered him a small cameo in Flash, like, and I'm sure. Listen, if you've been mistreated or bullied on any set or any workplace, and you've actively complained about it for a couple years, and the first thing that the studio or the company does is, hey, you get a small cameo in one of our upcoming movies. Of course, the first place I'm going is to Twitter and blasting all out. Like, that's the only thing that would make sense at this point, because again, behind closed doors, they love to obfuscate. They love to gaslight. They love to blame it on something else. They love to say, be the bigger person, be the bigger man. You know what I mean? But there's never anything done about it. There's never any injustice done, especially like what Cinema Gorilla did, especially for the people who are powerless, especially for the people who don't have that same level of clout or money or like the stockholders at WB or any kind of studio. So a lot more is tolerated with the more power that you have at these places. And, it just sucks that, Ray Fisher kind of got caught up in that and whatnot. But again, I'm already not going to watch the Flash thing because until they say something about Ezra Miller. But I mean, only DC EU thing I plan on supporting is the Snyder Cut. Until we hear some new words going on, because
love for Wonder Woman.
I'll check out Wonder Woman, but I would love to see Gal Gadot make a big post like Jason Momoa did too. Like, people have done the hashtag I stand with Ray Fisher, and people have said something. Nobody's going hard for it, and especially when you're a black man with no power in this industry, you know how tough it got to be for him. He's literally putting out legal documents every single day, like basically on Twitter, like responding to the situation because he has nowhere else to go. Like, and it's sad and it's unfortunate, but that's why I'm always going to stand with him on this fight. And salute to DC, salute to DC fandom. They had a great weekend this week. Blair and Bougie's, via Geeks of Color hosted. It was a really, really great event. DJ D Nice did the live stream for Instagram Live, so it was a really beautiful event. They're doing good stuff on that level, but I'd love for them to just handle the PR with Ray Fisher and handle that situation better and just respond. Just say something. That's all you got to do. It's just that easy. So,
yeah, I want to give you the floor a little bit, RB3, because I'm gonna pull a stunt on you, and I'm gonna peace out. But just for a quick sec, I'm just gonna grab something real quick. Sorry to do this midstream, but I have to. I want to give you the floor when it comes to what do you see the future of this holding? Do you see this ever getting resolved? Do you see this getting settled? Do you see Ray Fisher even having a future in Hollywood when it comes to the blackballing that Warner Brothers might do, or do you see an actual tangible solution to all this, because I feel like holding studios accountable, which is literally the title of our video, almost never happens. It never works out for the person who is calling out the major power that is a major blockbuster studio like a Warner Brothers. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you feel the conclusion is? And then I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what the conclusion is definitely uncertain. I mean, I for one don't know. I mean, I think with Ray Fisher, I think he's a talented enough actor and talented enough person that he can still find his footing and still land somewhere outside of this DC Warner Brothers thing. But hopefully we can eventually get to an age where that we don't have to have this blackballing conversation, because usually when we have the blackballing conversation, the people who are blackballed ultimately end up being right. Look at Monique. Look at what she fought for this entire time, for getting paid for her comedy. And a lot of people, even me at one point, might have said, "Hey, not great message, not the right messenger." But guess what? At the end, she ended up being proven right. She's still fighting that lawsuit and is looking very successful for her. And they literally put up her old TV shows on Netflix, Moesha, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure there's probably some check coming from that. But even with that or without that, regardless. Even another person who got blackballed, Colin Kaepernick from the NFL. Now, the conversation like 3, 4, 5 years ago, Colin's never coming back to the NFL. He's done. He's toast. Even the commentators on the sports channels were talking about how bad he was, how he wasn't even worth playing in the league anymore. Now, in 2020, he's completely vindicated to the fact that they literally put him in the Madden game. There's conversations of him, I think what was it, like Roger Goodell or something like that, being like, oh, they should have given Colin Kaepernick a chance. Like, of course you're going to be validated like after the blackball, but is the blackball going to be effective? I don't know. I think fortunately in this era and generation, I think there's not necessarily that much of a capacity to get blackballed in the same way that there was in like previous generations. I think if Ray Fisher isn't able to find the same kind of film and acting career, which I do think he can because he's very talented, but he's not able to do that. I think there's definitely lanes in podcasting. I think he's very charismatic on the mic. Especially during that like Zack Snyder DC
the DC
fandom thing. Yeah, I think he's very charismatic on the mic. He could do something like podcasting. He could do stand up. He could do whatever. I think there's definitely opportunities to do whatever if you're smart enough to navigate and maneuver the right kind of way. But is he probably not going to get the same parts? Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, because it's all its own tiny little boys club. If you mess with one studio, you're essentially messing with all of them. And that's the problem. That's where it needs to change. That's why we need black people, brown people, people of color, indigenous people from all spectrums of the sexuality or gender spectrum need to be at the top of these studios and representing the ideologies that are right and that are fair and that are good for human beings and people in general, and get away from this kind of boys club, money only, hungry capitalist society that we live in right now. So,
yeah, you hit it on the head, man. Obviously, that's exactly it. The problem, RB3, that I continue to see, and maybe it's because of our small community, that whether it's film, Twitter, or YouTube, or whatever, where I kind of see the opposite effect, RB3, where movie studios are starting to lean towards just listening to whoever the loudest voice is, which usually is these very extremist groups, these alt-right groups that are very angry about seeing diversity on screen. I don't know how many times, RB3, I have to scroll by a video that says diversity is bad, or how can they put a woman in this film, or woke is death, or woke is evil. And it's like, I'm baffled by these videos that get tossed in my face by the YouTube algorithm, and that are like, here, watch it, that are so adamant about being anti-Disney because they feel like Disney has too many people of color. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's what their agenda is, and that's what they want to change. And to me, that's baffling. It blows my mind. But I don't know, man. Like you said, money talks. And if these people start protesting these movies because they don't want to see women in film, or I don't know, something like that, they don't want to see Black Widow because it's a woman, even though that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, that might actually change it for the negative. And we might start to see more of these fringe groups be more dominant when it comes to decisions that studios make. I don't know if you think about that or.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we saw with The Hunt earlier in 2019 with Universal. They got spooked off by that loudest voice. I mean, that's the thing. We can't allow them to be the loudest voice anymore. Like, we can't allow that. People who are on a lot of people, and this is a criticism for electoral politics, for all kinds of areas, and like the normal people, the people who are kind of, indifferent, the people who don't care, the people who are just kind of casually strolling through social media and just casually scrolling through life and like without imagining that there's not a problem in the world. Though that quiet majority is, if that was able to be activated and if they actually cared about the issues that we're trying to get them to care about, we'll see a lot more changes a lot quicker. And that's just the and unfortunately, America has this kind of like passive thing of like, if it doesn't directly concern us, we don't care. It's not a concern to us. Like, that's just part of as ingrained in the American culture. So, for a lot of people who are frankly white, who are frankly feeling lonely or depressed or by themselves and are searching for YouTube for people to identify with, they're straying towards the other white people who they think they can identify with. And that's what creates this ecosystem and these bubbles of far right extremism. And frankly, it could also work on the left side, but frankly, these algorithms never program anything to the left, or even if we're going to straight on the movie spectrum, it's always going to push the geeks and gamers more than it's going to push the first cuts. That's just always what the algorithm is always going to happen. Like, that's a fact, and that's something that I have been trying to overcome. We are trying to overcome what Geeks of Color is trying to overcome. What a lot of people are trying to overcome. Even think about, and this is what's hilarious to me. All of the YouTube channels that got popular off of the whole Collider SJW, the Collider woke, the Collider far left, like narrative thing, are actively actually bigger channels now than Collider was. So it shows you it's not about the individual Collider, it's about the overall ideology that these people carry and how much of a lump that these people can kind of get behind. So it's sad and it's unfortunate, but that's why I'm going to fight every single day, until my last breath to change that and to change the YouTube system and to change how channels like that don't have to be at the top. Channels like Andy Six North channel don't have to be as big as they are. Like, that doesn't have to be a reality. Those people could go fart in their own basements in Florida for the rest of their lives, and that could be totally okay. And by the way, there's a reason why a lot of these popular other movie YouTubers are not in LA, is because they failed. They came out and they tried and they failed and they hate Hollywood, and that's ultimately why they ended up just sitting at home and being lame losers, like, on their own right. People like Grace Randolph literally used to be like an active Hollywood. If I think she was like a producer, something like that. Andy came, same thing. Like, all these people are failed losers who came to Hollywood and couldn't make it and have this anti-Hollywood settlement of like, oh, we're just gonna be like the far, we're gonna promote the far right, and we're gonna show these leftists in Hollywood what it really matters. Like, no, you're stupid. And the ideology that you preach and the intolerance and all that is gonna get real outdated real soon, son. So, yeah.
Well, the thing is, that's very true, and the problem is they do that because they see that's where the money's at now, right? There are people, and I mean this, RB3, that are willing to pay actual physical money in order to hear negative things about people of color or negative things about women in film. Like, right. There are people that want to hear that, so they're actively saying, hey, we will pay you more if you're angrier, if you're meaner, if you're crueler towards marginalized groups because that's what we like and makes us feel better. And there's starting to be this kind of there's starting to be this community. I'm gonna reference Internet Today. I always reference those guys, but I really do like Elliot and Ricky and kind of how they talk about it. But I was seeing Elliot's tweets today. I don't know if you follow him, where he was tweeting about Rogan, Joe Rogan, talking about his new podcast, and he has this new studio. Obviously, he just got $100 million off Spotify. $100 million, RB3. That's one of the biggest contracts. I think it's the biggest contract.
Yeah, the biggest contract in podcast.
And Joe Rogan has always prided himself in being a center guy, right? Where he's the kind of guy who's like, I'll listen to both sides. I'll have people from the left. I'll have people from the right. We'll talk it out. We'll discuss everything from martial arts to drugs to capitalism to socialism to any kind of thing, right? Bernie Sanders was on the show, and he openly endorsed.
Yeah, Bernie. Yeah.
My bad. He openly endorsed Bernie and said, "Oh, this is the guy. He's the best. He's the GOAT." And then he started saying, "Oh, well, if it's Biden, it's just as bad. So I might as well go Trump." And he's always prided himself in being a center guy, even though you can argue he probably isn't. But that's what he says, right? Now,
center in this country means a different thing than center in a lot of places. True. Yeah,
center means kind of like center right.
Yeah,
basically means right, or conservative. But the thing is, he's now starting to lean even more to the right by promoting these conspiracy theories that have openly been debunked when it comes to the West Coast fires. And it's one of those things, man, when Elliot tweeted that today, I immediately thought the same thing that I've thought about so many other people, whether it's a Louis C.K., whether it's anyone else who was, like you said, kicked out, put to the side. And now they start to lean towards, well, these people are giving me money, so I'm going to be like, hey, you see that black dude? F that guy. Oh, you see that? Like, they start to do that because they start to see money pop up on that side. So I feel like that has a dangerous effect. I do feel that way, RB3. And I feel like if people don't acknowledge it, they're turning a blind eye to it because it's there. It's to say that this is the way it is and this is the way it should be is very idealistic, and it should be. But I feel like ignoring the part where actual financial decisions are being affected by people on these alt-right communities is when you start to say, hey, maybe we should speak up. So I want to move on, RB3, but before we do, I don't know if there's any more Super Chats or Streamlabs, so I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, let me see here. I think we have one more Streamlab donation again from Big Mo. Big Mo!
Big Mo donated $10. I respect anyone who doesn't want to support Disney or choose not to watch The Mandalorian, but for me, kinda like what Ace said, I'm watching The Mandalorian for Pedro Pascal. A Latino lead like me that stands up for all marginalized communities.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, thank you, Big Mo. Cinema Gorilla came back in with another one. Gal Gadot refused to have the scene where Flash landed on her boobs, but they got a body double and put it in. I bet she has a lot to say, but as a migrant, her visa is on the line and whatnot, so imagine. But yes, DC Comics and Jim Lee rule, but they are beholden. Yeah, so yeah, to see
interesting.
That, yeah,
I didn't even know that. But I guess you can do that when, you don't feel comfortable and she wanted that body double.
See, but the whole idea of Gal Gadot's career being, her whole immigration being tied to her career, there's more problems, man. It's just sick. Like, the fact that she feels like she might not even be able to stand up for whatever she might stand up for because, hey, my immigration's on the line. If I don't keep playing Wonder Woman for the rest of my life, I might get shipped back to Israel. Like, that's sad, man. It's sad. And it's sad that, people would have to fill in that position. She might not fill in that position, but that's how a lot of people feel about their normal, regular jobs. Like, hey, I can't leave my job because I'm going to lose my health care. Hey, I can't lose my job because I'm going to lose the roof over my head. Hey, I can't leave my job that I hate and I'm going miserable and I feel like shooting myself over every day because, hey, I can't afford to not put gas in my car. Like, it's sad. Like, it's sick that we kind of have to live in that world.
and we live in that society, right? I mean, that's what this hyper capitalistic society kind of increases, is this idea that everyone has the same amount of money that they can just say, oh, if you don't like it, just move. Most people can't afford to move.
Yeah.
Just because you can doesn't mean they can.
Yeah.
RB3, before we close out this conversation, I kind of want to have a conversation. I want to talk about box office because I'm obsessed with it, and it's the biggest story right now for me. But before we get to that, and we'll finish out the show with that, I guess, I just feel, RB3, when it comes to international events that are currently going on now, I'm a little bit more, I don't want to say nuanced, but maybe nuanced in my approach when it comes to certain viewpoints of a nation, of a country, whether it's a China, whether it's a Russia, whether it's a Middle Eastern country, because I do feel like there are so many people on the ground that are trying to stabilize their nation just like people here are, right? Trying to fight the good fight. I have kept up with a few reports on Russia and how there's so many communities in Russia that are trying to fight against this government that's kind of key on becoming basically a dictatorship when it comes to Putin. And there's so many people fighting that in Russia. Russia is such a big country that I feel like a lot of people forget it when they just say Russians are evil or Russians are stupid. And it's one of those things where I'm like, that's such an ignorant thing to say, because there's so many people that are literally reporters and writers and activists that are trying to fight for their human rights. And there's so many human rights issues in Russia as well. The same can be said about the Chinese and about Hong Kong, right? I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more nuance when it comes to these conversations, considering what this country is representing now, and considering that we are now the host of concentration camps, and we've been for quite a while, and just people ignore that because it's brown people, frankly. That's kind of why they ignore it. If it was, little white kids, you bet your ass there's going to be a revolution and a war. But because it's little brown kids in cages, who cares? So I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more respect towards conversations around these international countries. That's it. That's my end of my spiel. My bad for going on an international politics rant.
I mean, I think you're 100% right.
Let's move on to box office, man, because I read this article. I want to give so much credit, and I don't know, maybe this guy sucks, but I just read the article, so I don't really necessarily have an opinion on the guy, just on the article that he wrote. His name is David Sims. Let's talk about Tenet, RB3, a movie that you drove to Las Vegas to see.
Yeah, great video. Check it out here on First Cut. And another version coming on Geeks of Color really soon. It's already finished. I don't know when Dorian plans on releasing it.
So when Sabrina was here, we had a conversation about the release of Tenet and how that's going to do, and we all kind of agreed, I think me the most adamantly, that this was kind of a bad decision. And it turns out money talks. It's the biggest talker. Numbers speak in Hollywood louder than any other voice, and numbers are saying that this was not a good decision. No matter how you paint it, the fact that they wanted to be the first in the movie theaters, what's the point if you're not even going to break even? Because it came out, and I really want to read certain portions of this article, RB3, because I don't feel like I can word it as good as this guy does. But essentially what this guy is saying is that what this shows is that it's really just a catastrophic event when it comes to Hollywood movies, considering all the movies that were planned this year, even if they are later in the year, are starting to look like a bad decision to even release, which is why I kind of wanted to title this, is the movie in 2020 going to even happen? Are 2020 movies even going to happen anymore? Because let's face it, RB3, I don't think they are. There's only a few movies left on the schedule that are still there in the month of November. I think there's only 2 movies, which is Black Widow and James Bond, No Time to Die. And then a few in December. That's it for the rest of the year. And we don't even know if those movies are going to stick around. And by the looks of the box office, Tenet made... Look at what this guy says. Tenet was opened in nearly 3,000 theaters in cinemas, and yet it made 9.4 million opening weekend. 9.4 opening weekend, 3,000 theaters, and Tenet has only made 28 million in its total run domestically, and so far what this guy is saying is that this is an 80% dip in theaters, and that the revenue cost, he says, IndieWire estimates that the sum amount of $5,000 per theater, because they made less than $15 million this year, which isn't enough to pay for basic operating costs. As studios grow more skittish about releasing major films, those numbers will only dwindle. Tenet was supposed to be the industry's biggest lifeline. For now, Hollywood has nothing else to pin its hopes on. An 80% drop in cinema, less than $15 million in the rest of the box office for the rest of the year previously. What this is looking like, RB3, is that there's not, if a studio is smart, they're going to say, we don't want to see any movies in theaters this year. I'm not going to release my movie in theater. Yeah. That's a smart thing to do, because let's face it, man, at 25% capacity, you're not going to make money. You're just not. And Tenet is the biggest example, considering it's supposed to be the biggest movie of the year. What happened?
It's a little tough to know what Tenet would have done if it would have waited till LA and New York was open. I think that's the biggest thing.
Or just waited till March 2021. I mean, for crying out loud.
I mean, I get that idea of wanting to be first. Like, I get that idea, and I get, like, you know.
But it's an idea that it didn't make any money. What's the point of being first if you're going to lose more?
I think there's a way. I think there's a way you could have been first, and you could have opened in October or November, and would have been good. Like, right now, LA has the lowest COVID cases it's had since April, which the whole thing started in March, and it wasn't even a big thing in March in LA. In April, it started becoming like a little bit of a thing. But we're seeing the lowest numbers we've seen since April. Right now, the governor projects that we could be seeing reopenings as early as the beginning of October. The thing is, movies don't thrive without buzz, and it's impossible to get a huge buzz and a huge reaction if you're opening in markets outside of LA and New York, especially for a movie like Tenet, which isn't the most commercially accessible thing, which is, you know, it makes you question why they would make that the first movie right out the gates. Like, I think if it would have been like Wonder Woman or something like that, it would have been a little bit of a different situation, but not Tenet. Tenet's not that movie because it's not that easily accessible, and you need a lot of buzz, and that movie's not buzzworthy outside of LA and New York necessarily. So I feel like I think it would have been a different conversation if it would have opened end of October, early November, and would have made a little bit more money. Now, it did make money in places like overseas, like, you know, like it's made over $200 million worldwide. So people overseas, where it's a little more open, it's a little more accessible, and it's a little more than 25% capacity, I think it would have, you know, it does good. But it being the first out the gate and then not completely open market, it was only a failure for a disaster. That being said, though, like, if there truly is nothing coming out in 2020, and this is the only thing that's going to be right into theaters, there could be a chance that over time this movie can make a lot of money if more and more people are slowly becoming more accustomed to going to the theaters. But I don't think people are going to become accustomed to that until it's another movie other than Tenet, because people just aren't rushing to see Tenet.
That's my thing. This idea that having Tenet in theaters for 2 months with no competition as some sort of genius marketing strategy or genius financial decision is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That doesn't make any sense. People, if people aren't going to watch this movie, just look at these numbers. $6 million is what they made in the second weekend. $6 million.
Yeah, but from 3.4 to 6 is not a bad drop. Not a bad drop.
Exactly, but here's what they're saying. They say normally a drop of 29% would be regarded by the studios as a sign of excellent word of mouth, but Tenet cost $200 million to make and needs to gross more than double that to break even. Warner Brothers might be able to eke out that number worldwide over the next few months, but very little of it will come from the U.S. This is just something that you're not going to get that money over time if no one is going to see it. If everyone is 25% capacity, you're just not. You see what I'm saying? Even though it drops in a reasonable amount, that's not bad. Those drops, it's still just not enough money, considering that if it goes week by week, the people who wanted to see Tenet already saw Tenet, and there's no real conversation about it because everyone has seen it at different times. It's just so frustrating to me that they chose to do this. It's a movie that I probably would have loved to see later on. I mean, you have the time. So this to
there's
me
all
shows
the time in the world, and I think that's why.
Yeah.
I think that's why. Listen, I think if it would have opened at the same time across all the United States, this would have been a completely different conversation. But this whole idea of like, oh, we had to open in September, and I'm sure it has something to do with stocks. I'm sure it has something to do with pleasing investors or whatever. But this whole idea of rushing the movie till opening in September was totally the wrong move. And I think that if it would have opened in a more widespread field, it would have been a little bit different. That being said, would have made money in that situation? I don't know, but it would have made a little more than it's making right now, for sure. So,
yeah. Let's move on to Mulan. Mulan had a double opening, one in China and one obviously just through PVOD streaming or premium VOD when it comes to Disney Plus. Let's start with China, just because China is the big elephant in the room, which is a giant L RB3. I think they said 23 million based on this article. 23 million, man. I mean, what they said, The Last Jedi made like 10 million more than that, and people in China don't even like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a movie that's literally the most pander China movie ever. It's literally made for China.
Yeah.
Like, this is a movie that was made with China in mind, that this is going to do box office gangster numbers in China. Mm-hmm. And it did the opposite. It's one of the lowest grossing major blockbuster Hollywood films in China. Considering that, the Transformers movies in China make like, 180 million? 150? Mm-hmm. Like, those are the kind of numbers that you're getting from China. Yeah. And you get 20 mil, 23
Even
mil?
Tenet, I think Tenet so far made 50 million in China so far.
There you go. But what is that? I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. Is it the Chinese people being like, we don't like being pandered to? Is it like we don't like our own people?
Well,
I'm confused by that.
I think for one, I think there's a lot of issues. So I think the lead actress and her comments.
But she was pro-China with her comments.
I know, but she might be pro-Chinese government, but that doesn't mean the Chinese people are going to get behind that, right? Like that plays a big part into it. The controversies, like you said, with the Muslim concentration camps and those areas played a part into it. I think the fact that I'm sure they had it all ramped up to already go out in March, and I'm sure if they would have had it in March, I'm sure it would have, again, same situation I'm saying with Tenet. If this would have came out, the original day would have came out in March, things would have been totally different. But
yes, it would have.
That's not.
It would have killed. It would have been huge.
Yeah, it definitely would have been huge. But unfortunately, that's not how it went. And I think, we might see more of this going forward. Like, I don't think Chinese audiences are as dumb as I think Hollywood studios think they are. Like, I think people thought like, oh, they did Mulan, like this classic Chinese tale, and they put Jet Li and Donnie Yen, and they rolled out the red carpet. But then when you actually see in the movie, it has nothing to do like it's not that great. So it just I think that's a big part of it too. Honestly, Ace, like I don't think it was that great, and I think Chinese audiences aren't that enthusiastic to see it.
I don't know about that, man, because Chinese audiences love The Last Night, which is one of the worst movies ever created on humanity, on the human planet. They love a lot of bad movies, and I'm not saying that they have bad taste. I'm just saying that they can like bad and good movies. I don't think it's necessarily like they just don't like bad movies, because they frankly like a lot of bad movies.
Well, I also think it could. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're saying bad movies? I'm sorry.
No, that's it. I was done with that. I wanted to move on to the last portion of the Mulan segment and our video. Yes.
Well, I mean, what I was gonna say is that I honestly think when it comes to geopolitical factors, when it comes to all those factors, those all play a big part into it. Quality of the movie, you can argue whether or not it plays a part into it, and you can argue about the lead actress too. But I think what's kind of undeniable here is, Black Panther makes a lot of money, Marvel makes a lot of money in China. Star Wars not necessarily, but it made more than Mulan. I think at this point, I think Disney kind of maybe got to recognize that maybe their live action animated films aren't as as mainstay and as culturally relevant in other countries, especially Mulan. I mean, there's controversy when Mulan came out in '98 about how it was mischaracterizing Chinese culture. So what makes you think that in 2020 they would be so open to seeing another adaptation of it, especially in such a pandery sense? So, I mean, I don't know. That's just my question too. I also wonder about piracy. I wonder about, since it came out on PVOD, what did it get pirated a lot too? But I think a lot of it does just come down to cultural insensitivity, especially when it came to the original. So,
which is so interesting, right? Because obviously I'm not Chinese, so I don't have a point. But it seemed like it was so pro-China to me, to the point that I was like, God, you might as well say, give your heart to China and die. There was that scene with the emperor, was like, give your heart, China. And I was like, yo, this is very state, movie where it's very pro, giving your heart to the government no matter what, even if the government is literally discriminating against you for being a woman. Like, that's literally the message I got from it when she was like, I don't care if they hate me because I'm a woman. I still love my emperor. And I was like, yikes. Let me move on to the PVOD aspect. There's this article in Yahoo Finance. Shout out to Joe Starr, who mentioned this one to me via his SJU video where he talked about Mulan today. So go check out that video. It's the OG. This is where I'm taking it from. But it's a Yahoo Finance article saying, let me read the top of the article. It says, according to exclusive figures provided by Analytics Research 7-part data, nearly 29% of U.S. households that subscribe to Disney Plus purchased the $30 Mulan film September 12th, far surpassing the other popular titles on the platform. During the company's last earnings report, Disney said that the streaming platform has amassed over 60 million global subscribers. Assuming that the U.S. households make up more than 50% of that total base, 7-part data suggests that roughly 9 million users purchased Mulan for the $30 fee. Which shows RB3, that's kind of a lot of people.
That's like $270 million right now.
That's kind of successful. And it says here in the rest of the article saying that no matter how you see it, the end result is a whole lot of cash for Disney, which will now maintain 100% of the profits instead of a traditional theatrical release where the box office revenue is normally split with theater chains. Ding, 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 right? Or drop mic moment, because you could say, is this a trend now that's going to happen, RB3, considering it was kind of successful?
Well, I mean, successful is a relative term, right? Like, if 9 million people purchased the $30 thing, it would come up to like $270 million, right? Now, in the theatrical, I think in the traditional theatrical landscape, this movie would have made $1 billion, made over $1 billion, maybe. It probably would have made over $1 billion, and theaters and studios usually keep like a 50% cut, so it could probably make around 50, about 500 million or so. Take away the budget, take away like ads and all that kind of stuff. It's about $100 million, $200 million worth of profit in there, and that's honestly what studios are. And by the way, that might be the profit, but they might not report that, because if you really look at like a lot of studios like accounting stuff, they'll say like, they'll say Avengers Endgame is not profitable if they could figure out a way to say it. But they definitely would have made a lot more money, I think, opening theatrically. There would have been a lot more opportunity for, making more money. This is the best case scenario. Okay. I was just going to say, this is the best case scenario. But unfortunately, what it looks like is if 9 million people brought it on opening weekend and paid the $30 for it, I don't know how many people are gonna continue to continue to pay for it. I think the people who decide to pay for it and own it on opening weekend are probably the majority of people who care about watching Mulan to begin with. So I don't know how much more capital it has to make, but it seems like if it made $270 million of pure cash and 9 million more subscribers on Disney Plus, or maybe not 9 million more subscribers, but no,
they said a lot more actually.
Oh, okay.
It went up. They're in 29% of U.S. households. I don't know how much they went up in subscribers.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's enough to make their budget back, cool. But it definitely probably won't make as much as it. I think it definitely proves to make money for this model and for this climate. But I still think there's a lot more money left in the theatrical experience.
It went up
too.
68%. The amount of Disney Plus downloads went up 68%. So there you go.
That was good.
To answer that.
Yeah.
I guess my final question is this the last time we see premium VOD? Or is Disney Plus going to do this for Black Widow?
Well, I mean,
For
I think they already said for Soul, right? They're putting Soul on Disney Plus.
I don't know. Have they said that?
I mean, they said Soul's coming on Disney Plus. They haven't said if it's gonna be a PVOD thing yet or not. I think personally, putting them for free on Disney Plus, and you've made this point before too, Ace. Putting it for free on Disney Plus does a lot more for Disney Plus than charging for it. So
You want those subscribers, man.
yeah, exactly. And
You want to have those $79.99 per month.
exactly, and that's. I mean, listen, I if they told me, like, you know, you can have Disney Plus for an extra $1, but you get to see Soul, I'm down. But, you know, at the same time, if they're still not doing anything about Gina Carano, then I don't know.
You're not going to watch it anyway.
Then I'm not going to be having Disney Plus for that much longer anyway. But, you know, it'll be cool to see Soul that way and cool to experience it. But, you know, it also would have been great to see it in theaters too. And I think it would have made a lot more money in theaters. But, you know, if you're going to put it on Disney Plus, I think the best way to do it is to put it for free. And I think you just have a lot more long-term success that way. I personally think that. But, you know, these people and these, you know, computers and algorithms and strategies, they got, you know, way different approaches to, and they probably know what the best answer and best resolve is either way. Anyway, but I do think $30 is too much. If you are going to do a premium VOD thing, lower it to $20. It just makes a lot more sense, you know. So
20 is still a lot, but yeah, I mean 20 seems like that's how much I paid for. That's how I think I paid. Which movie did we see that I paid money for? Was it the Pete Davidson one?
Oh, maybe.
That cost $20, right?
Yeah, I think that was. Yeah.
But that's an example. I think we got that one though. So might be
I think
wrong.
Sabrina got that one. I don't know if we got that.
I'm gonna wait for you to come back.
You're frozen.
froze.
You're frozen on my end. Oh no.
You back?
I see you. Do you see me? Hello.
Yes, we're back.
Hello.
Right?
Yeah, we back. We were never gone, but you know.
Either way, that's a cue, man, that we're done. Any other final Streamlabs or chats before we piece out?
Let me check in real quick.
If not, I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in throughout this entire episode. We really do appreciate you guys. Everyone else left in the chat, whether it's Cinema Gorilla, whether it's Saad, whether it's Mike, Buxo, D-Train, all you guys, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for commenting, interacting with us. Lara, Stub, thank you. All of you guys, we really do appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for an episode on Netflix on the Meaning Of podcast. It's a really fun episode, so make sure you check that out. You can find me at Squad Leader Race.
Find me at Director RB3.
Follow Sabrina at Sabrina X Monica as well. Support her on Patreon, Sabrina on Film. For the Meaning Of podcast and the First Cut crew, we are peacing out.
This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. With the 4/5 divide you in half. You getting at me equals a bloodbath.